Disney characters get brought up a lot whenever people discuss guest characters for multiverses, and it's for good reason. It's like asking for Street Fighter characters in Mortal Kombat or Marvel characters in Injustice. While it may not be likely, it'd be an absolute dream come true if it happened. Disney would easily be the best possible company for a crossover in a Warner Brothers game. The only real question, if Player First Games could add any Disney character to the game, who should it be? In my opinion, that answer is pretty obvious, and it's gotta be Darth Vader. Now, I do want to start out by saying that I don't think it's impossible to see Darth Vader, or even Disney characters at all, in multiverses. We've seen Sora in Smash, and that felt impossible until it happened, and of course we see Disney characters pretty frequently in Fortnite. All it would take for Disney to play ball is for multiverses to be a huge hit and make a ton of money, which is pretty reasonable seeing as it's a free-to-play platform fighter with characters like Batman. Also, Warner Brothers is probably the company Disney works with the most, and people who have worked for both companies have said that the rivalry is pretty much fan-made tribalism. Keep in mind that every single LEGO game of a Disney IP is a collaboration between the two companies. The people who say that these companies won't work together are mostly speaking out of ignorance, and they really don't know what they're talking about. I mean, Batman's in the new Chip and Dale movie. I don't think Warner Brothers or Disney care. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm definitely not saying that Darth Vader's gonna happen, but I wanted to defend my boy, because that's my guy, dude. I love Darth Vader. We're talking about the most iconic villain in movie history. I don't care about Thanos, I don't care about the Joker, it's all Darth Vader. We're talking about a character that is more popular than every other Star Wars character combined. And keep in mind that Star Wars is a colossal franchise. Again, I don't think it's likely, but it's definitely not impossible for Darth Vader to show up in multiverses at some point in the future. Now, how would Vader work in a game like MultiVersus? He'd obviously be a tank, and I also think he'd be more of a grounded character. Even though a lot of these games are mostly played in the air, Vader isn't known for jumping around and doing air dashes. I mean, he's a Sith, so he's capable of jumping, but I think his kit should be at its strongest on the ground. I also think Vader should revolve around heavy teamwork. As weird as it sounds, Vader is one of the best team players in all of Star Wars. Before he was Darth Vader, he was Anakin Skywalker working flawlessly alongside Obi-Wan and Ahsoka. And once he's Darth Vader, he does the Emperor's bidding pretty much as the Emperor asks. Not to mention that the way he dies is sacrificing himself for another person. Vader gives his life to save his son, so I think Darth Vader should be a setup character and really work well with teammates. So let's get into the moveset that I came up with, and hopefully I didn't make another bottom tier grounded character in a platform fighter. Let's start with Darth Vader's passive. Impressive, most impressive, allows Darth Vader to take 20% less knockback when he's on the ground. As a tank and a heavyweight, if you can keep this passive active, then you can survive for a very long time. Of course, the counterplay to this is pretty simple. Get Darth Vader into the air and juggle him to death. Do not let him land or get out of disadvantage. Now, for the rest of Darth Vader's moves, I wanted to split them up in two ways. All of Darth Vader's lightsaber attacks that don't use the Force are his normal attacks. And all of his moves where he uses the Force are his special attacks. I think it's pretty simple, and getting into his normal attacks, most of them are saber swings with solid range, a bit of startup, and armor. I won't go over the up, side, and neutral specials in much detail because these moves are kind of universal in multiverses. Neutral attack is usually a chargeable kill move, Vader's just has armor. Side attack is usually a multi-hit jab combo, and up attack is an anti-air a lot of the time. Vader's anti-air is also chargeable and armored. In the air, all of his armored attacks lose their armor. This just adds to Vader being better on the ground than he is in the air. I would imagine Darth Vader's normal attacks would behave kind of like an Ike normal attack or a Byleth normal attack. These characters have pretty solid range and they're built around spacing, but they definitely aren't the fastest character on the roster, and you're not going to be rushing people down with them. But other than an occasional hit of armor, Vader's normal attacks are very basic. However, Vader's down attack is pretty unique. Instead of the standard armor breaker, Vader has a block stance. He holds his lightsaber in front of him and he blocks enemy projectiles that collide with the lightsaber. He doesn't deflect them back at the enemy or anything, he mostly just destroys them by blocking the projectile. Keep in mind Vader has a slow movement speed, so this is one of the ways he's going to help defend himself against characters that want to camp him and run away and pelt him with projectiles. Without this move, I think Vader would struggle a lot against characters like Tom and Jerry and Rain Dog and really have nothing he can do against them. There's another effect to this attack though. If Darth Vader blocks a physical attack, he essentially counters. He blocks the enemy attack and counters with his own, which does 20% more knockback and damage than the blocked attack. The move only goes on cooldown after Vader parries a physical attack. Vader can't use his powerful tool in the air, however, and this becomes a standard downward spike. Now, as I mentioned earlier, Vader uses the Force for his specials, and they're a little bit more interesting than his normal attacks. Starting with his neutral special, Vader uses his Force Grip. During Force Choke, Vader holds an enemy still in the air while they take damage over time and are slowed. Once the Force Choke ends, Vader can let the enemy drop to the ground, he can push them away, or he can pull them closer. This all depends on what direction Vader is holding when the move ends. The move will end prematurely if the enemy is hit out of Force Choke, or if Darth Vader is hit. This is a pretty great setup move for Vader's teammate, but it does leave Vader vulnerable as both parties can't move during, well, the move. But keep Vader's passive in mind here. In situations where both Vader and the enemy are hit, Vader should be in less danger. This is a grounded move, so he'll be taking 20% less knockback. Also, Vader's pretty heavy, so it's pretty unlikely that Vader is going to die, and the enemy he's holding will live. In the air, this becomes Force Slam. Darth Vader falls to the ground, doing damage in an area around where he lands. This is essentially just to give Vader an additional option to try and get out of juggles and mix up his landing when he's in disadvantage. Vader's side special is much simpler than the neutral special. It's his Lightsaber Throw. Darth Vader throws his lightsaber and uses the Force to call it back. It applies 1 stack of weakness to enemies hit on the way out, and it applies 5 stacks of weakness to enemies hit on the way back. The move has a short cooldown, and it functions exactly the same in the air. This is Vader's only projectile. No Escape is Vader's up special, and it's essentially an anti-air grab. Darth Vader grabs onto an opponent above him with the Force, and he brutally throws them into the ground. Just like Lightsaber Throw, this move behaves exactly the same in the air. Finally, we have Darth Vader's down special. The grounded version of the special spawns a wall that Darth Vader can move with, or he can let it drop and it becomes a stationary wall on the ground. He uses the Force to rip up a piece of the floor of whatever stage he's on for this wall, and the material depends on the stage. For example, it would be a stone wall on Trophy's Edge, a metal wall in the Batcave, and a wooden wall on the Tree Fort. This is purely cosmetic. It does not change the durability of the wall, which can be broken. This move gives Darth Vader another defensive tool for projectiles, but it's also really good for his teammates. Darth Vader can build the wall and let Shaggy have time to charge his Ultra Instinct, or give Bugs time to dig through his box of stuff. And while this move seems pretty good, it's the aerial version of it that really pulls Darth Vader's kit together. In the air, Darth Vader uses the Force to pull a platform from beneath him, and he can stand on this platform until it despawns or is broken. What's the big deal? Well, think back to Vader's weakness, being airborne. If Vader can spawn a platform, in the air he would gain access to his armored normals, his Force Choke, and even his passive. Good players could see that they're about to get hit with a strong move while in the air, and they can spawn this platform to give them access to Vader's passive, which could allow the player to survive an otherwise fatal attack. It also acts as a form of recovery, giving Vader his jumps and air dodges back. He can also use this as another mix-up for how he's going to land while he's in disadvantage. Of course, this move would need to have a decent cooldown, but with this platform, Vader can essentially ignore his major weakness for a little bit. I honestly think it's the single most important move in his entire kit. That should just about do it for Darth Vader's moveset. Let me know if you think I nailed how Darth Vader should play in a game like MultiVersus in the comments. I'm pretty proud of it, but I'd also love to hear what you guys think. I would also be curious to read what you guys would want as Vader skins, and let's get into what I think we could see. In terms of skins, Darth Vader is usually pretty limited, but I don't think that'd be the case for MultiVersus. Skins like Rebels Vader or Ralph McQuarrie Vader that mostly just change the art style and proportions of Vader, well, those skins work a lot better in MultiVersus. Think about the animated series Batman skin. Battle Damaged Vader is also finally canon thanks to the Obi-Wan Kenobi show. Unlike Rebels, where Damaged Vader really only has a broken helmet, in Kenobi, Vader's buttons get smashed, his cape and his back are slashed, and he has the broken helmet. A skin that makes Vader not only look like this, but also changes his voice so that he sounds Anakin in a voice filter would be so sick. Speaking of Anakin, we finally have a game where an Anakin skin for Vader just makes sense. Most of the time, Darth Vader is only really playable in Star Wars games like Star Wars Battlefront. In these games, there's no reason to make Anakin a skin when he should just outright be a playable character. Anakin and Vader are active during different eras of Star Wars, and in Battlefront, you want to play as Anakin against battle droids and alongside clones, not Anakin alongside stormtroopers against rebels. It's also a Star Wars only game, so you get access to way more Star Wars characters in your roster. That's not the case for MultiVersus. Anakin's only real shot at being playable in the game is as a Vader skin, and keep this in mind, Darth Vader was not born when he was put into the armor. Anakin Skywalker died before the armor and was already Darth Vader during Order 66 in his duel with Obi-Wan. He just wasn't armored up yet. I also don't see why a non-armored Vader wouldn't be able to do any of the moves that I listed. There's also precedent for this in the actual Star Wars games, where pre-armor Vader has been added as a playable character. Oh, and for voice actors, I don't see any better choice than Matt Sloan for Darth Vader and Matt Lanter for the battle damaged and pre-armor skins. And as I mentioned earlier, I don't think Anakin gets into the game if he doesn't become a Darth Vader skin. One Star Wars character would already be insane, but even if they got access to 5 Star Wars characters, do you really think one of them's gonna be Anakin? Obi-Wan Kenobi, Luke Skywalker, Leia, Han, Rey, Kylo Ren, The Mandalorian, Ahsoka. There's a lot of characters that are main characters in movies that have their own shows, and if Darth Vader gets in, Anakin is technically already in the game, so why not just give Darth Vader an Anakin skin? But that's really all I have to say about my Vader concept. I think I did a pretty good job at making a grounded, teamwork-based tank that has a lot of crowd control and is also not complete dog ass. I didn't want another Little Max situation where they made a character so grounded that he was unplayable in the air and is just the worst character in the game. And if you did enjoy the concept, just go ahead and leave a like and subscribe. You might as well. You enjoyed yourself, why not? With all of that said, this has been Nosy Boy, and I'll smell you guys later.